So I've been running a Dillon 650 for several years now, and right now it's set up in 9mm configuration. I don't always reload all my ammo that I shoot. I do buy some still, depending upon what the cost is. Right now, reloading your own ammo is still very expensive, so sometimes you can still find value in just purchasing the ammo alone. I still have quite a few rounds and primers left from all the days of where I would just buy them when I had a chance to. So I've also done a lot of modifications to this setup. I don't just have the brass feeder, I also have a bullet feeder as well, which is really nice. That does take away a slot in your setup for the device that would check whether you had powder in your piece of brass or not. But once I started using this enough, I went away from that anyways, because this Dillon is so dependable. I've never had it actually not put powder in a bullet before, in a casing before. So what I have on my setup is I've got, obviously, every pull makes a bullet. Your first stage comes down, drops a bullet. It will push the primer out and kind of open up the case a little bit, make sure it's not anything crazy, and then the second stage you'll push forward on this handle that will seat a primer in the open cavity for in the brass. You'll then do a pullback on this function, which will go up into your powder hopper. That will open the brass up a little bit and drop the amount of powder in there that you've designated. I can't recall what I run in mine, but what I'll do is every 500 rounds or so, I'll take one and I'll dump it in a grain measuring device, and I will verify that I don't see anything I don't like in that quantity. Depending upon 115 and 124 grain bullets, 124 grain uses less powder than 115, so I've been shooting 124 for a while now. I've probably got maybe 15,000 more rounds of that to go through before I get back to my 115. But then, so as this indexes, it will, you've got one now that's putting in the powder. It will come down and rotate over to my bullet feeder, and the bullet feeder just has a function that as it goes up, it will drop a single bullet into that casing. I also have made it to where I open my casing up a little bit more, so that bullet, when it goes up in there, it doesn't have a chance of moving the bullet. It doesn't come out very easily, so I made sure that that's how I have that set up. The other thing is one thing I do that a lot of people don't do is in the seating and crimping stages. The seating's fine. You just you get yourself a set of calipers, and you'll check your bullet length depending upon what style of nose you're using, which round nose is what I normally use anyway. So you'll take that and you'll get the measurement that's you're required for that specific bullet, and then when it goes on to the next stage where it crimps the brass back around the bullet, I crimp harder than a lot of other people do, and the reason being is I wanted to attempt a watertight seal on my bullets, because I want them to last as long as possible. I know that there's probably things that people don't like about that, or say that you shouldn't be doing that, or caution against it. I get it, but I've been shooting out on my range for years now, and if I see a bullet on the ground that is whole by just some chance it falls out, or I do it, it doesn't shoot, and I check the chamber, drop the mag or whatever, and that bullet hits the ground, and I find it someday, I stick it back in my gun and I shoot it just to see if it will still shoot depending upon rained on and everything else, being stood in the mud, stamped on, and everything else. I have yet to have a single bullet not fire. So I get there's downsides to over crimping your bullets, but for what I want them to do, they perform. I've never had a problem. I do this with my 223 as well, which I know a lot of people really advise against as well. I don't care. Every bullet that I've ever made is watertight seal, pretty well. I've yet to see one that did not survive being rained on, stamped on into the mud and everything else. So, but with this whole setup, because I've made quite a few thousands of rounds with this Dillon, I used to set to one bullet on at a time, and that's fine and dandy. But when you're starting to really pump out a large quantity, that's why I got the bullet feeder on there and everything else on this setup. The other thing I did was I drilled a hole in my bench, and I had some PVC pipe, so that, because the small little container that comes with the Dillon doesn't fit but like maybe 150 rounds. So I have this actually dropping through my table and going down below into a ammo can, and I can fit 1,000 rounds, 2,000 rounds in that ammo can. And then what I do is I dump them into my smaller ammo cans, and I have a scale that I weigh them with, and I know that roughly 1,000 rounds is roughly 36 pounds or something like that. So I just pour them into those cans until I hit 36 pounds, and then I just seal them up. And that's just how I've gone about my way of. I stopped counting rounds a long time ago, and I started weighing them. This setup works pretty well. There's a little bit of cost in this, but just the basic Dillon itself is actually pretty reasonable, and they've got a lifetime warranty on these items. You can make a crap load of rounds on these things and never have any problems. I do buy extra spring kits and things like that, extra kits for fixing small things. Like little small plastic pieces may crack or something like that, but I've had very little trouble. Dillon's been a fantastic ammo press. The newer XL650s have a different style of primer block that keeps it. It's not a disc anymore. I think it chambers back and forth, and this keeps it from having, I guess, a riskier time of having if anything goes wrong and blowing up your tube of primers, which this single tube is capable of taking an explosion of all the primers in the tube, from what I've been told. Never had it happen. I've never had a single primer explode on me. And I can tell you right now, when I go to crimp my primers in, if I feel one that doesn't feel right, I send it home. I just push harder. I've never had a single one explode, and I've actually crimped them so wrong looking that you just couldn't even imagine them working, and I've still put them in my gun and shot them. Mainly because I like to test as much as I possibly can of a worst case scenario kind of round or item. And then the other good thing about this is I do 100 rounds in this tube at a time, and this little feeder lets you know when it drops down. It'll tell you that you're low on primers. And I did, because I can start going through these so quickly, you have the disc that you can shake and get your primers, and you pick them up with your single tube at a time. I ended up buying a primer automatic loading device back here. It's really nice. It can load the primers faster than I can get through 100 rounds. And the better part about this is when you're not focusing on putting the bullet in there and you have all the stages, you can stand off to the side here and you can watch all your stages as they go through. And that's really beneficial, because that keeps you focused on what this thing is doing at that time, and you can catch any malfunction that you may see, so you're not running into any problem randomly. So this is the reason that I went to the system that feeds all the bullets in on its own, and had where I can have all these items going and doing their own function. And every once in a while this will happen. And I have tweaked my bullet feeder, I can't tell you how many times. But every few hundred rounds, one of these bolts will be upside down. And I can tell you right now, I have tweaked this thing. I've watched the video on how to do it. I've done everything I can possibly do to tweak this, but every once in a while you'll still have that one round that'll get through. And the only thing I can think of is that every once in a while there's a round that may be a little bit out of tolerance that somehow skips that stage. So, if you're ever thinking about getting an reloader, Dillon is a really good brand to go with. Like I said, never had a problem, and you get what you pay for, and they'll last you a lifetime. And you can absolutely crank through the ammo. I know that this time of right now in the country is not really a good time for making your own ammo because primers are so ridiculous right now. But once the primers get back to being more readily available at an appropriate price, you should be paying a penny around a primer. Okay, you should be paying a penny a primer. You should be paying a penny to a penny and a half for the brass. The powder is about a penny, and then the bullet should be about 6 to 7 cents. And you should have 10 to 9 cents in a round. So these primers being twice the cost of the round itself is ridiculous, and I refuse to buy these things until this changes. I do not understand what is going on with these damn primers. So, for now, you can buy ammo for 20 cents a round. So why would I buy primers for 20 cents a round? So I've just been stocking up on ammo from other sources. Other than that, the only things that you really need to watch out for is you need to have a good tumbler for your brass. Clean it as much as possible. You can reuse brass. I don't even know how many times. I have reused brass at least 5 to 6 times so far on some of my brass. So I don't know what the most people do. Most people probably once reuse and never use it again. I don't know. But you can reuse the crap out of it. A lot of people like to lube it and clean it up. I don't. When it comes out of the cleaner, I dust it. I dry it off, and I chuck it up inside here, and I'll let it run. One of the things that I do is I store my dirty brass in a large ammo can so that I can make sure that I have it separated out as to what is dirty and what is clean. And I also have clean brass in a similar style ammo can as well. I don't over clean mine like a lot of people do, but I do definitely keep them stored in different containers. And I do this as well with the bullets themselves. I put them in a ammo can, and I think these will store about 2,000 bullets per each one of these, and they are quite heavy when you got that many in there. Maybe I run my press dirtier than everybody else. I don't know. I run my guns a lot dirtier than everybody else as well. So I mean, maybe it's just the way I am. You don't have to be too picky about this stuff. And I've also, when going through the stages of checking all these bullets, I have shot them in different configurations of depth sets and everything else like that, and I have yet to find something that does not really work too well. But as long as you're generally close to what's you really need all that that total overall height of that bullet, you're going to be pretty good. Now, when you come to your rifle cartridges, you probably need to take a little more care because you can have a lot more things go wrong with a rifle cartridge. But your 9mm, it's fairly simple, and that's not really something that you have to worry too much about. Other than that, hope you enjoyed the video. Have a good day.